The delegation walked through the gleaming corridors of the Galactic Council's most prestigious military installation. HFY, the Zenthari ambassador, led the group with practiced grace, her crystalline skin refracting the ambient light into dancing rainbows across the polished floors. Behind her, a dozen representatives from various species murmured amongst themselves, their translator implants converting a cacophony of languages into comprehensible speech. And then there was Aladdin. The human walked quietly at the back of the group, his hands clasped behind his back, his dark eyes taking in everything with an unsettling intensity. He had been on the council station for 3 standard cycles now, ever since humanity had been granted provisional membership following their discovery by a Zenthari exploration vessel. Most species required decades of observation before being allowed into the council. Humanity had been fast. That fact alone made many species nervous. And here HFY announced, her voice resonating with harmonics that most species found soothing. We have the Armory of Valor, repository of the finest weapons ever crafted by council civilizations. The massive doors irised open, revealing a cathedral-like space. Weapons hung suspended in energy fields, each one a masterpiece of destructive engineering. The delegation spread out, examining the displays with reverence. HFY noticed Aladdin had stopped at the entrance, his expression unreadable. Is something wrong? She asked, approaching him. In the 3 cycles since his arrival, she had found the human fascinating. Most species were easy to read their emotions, their intentions, their fears. Aladdin was an enigma wrapped in friendly smiles and carefully measured words. No, he said softly, just taking it all in. A Throlian delegate, its tentacles quivering with excitement, called out from across the room. Ambassador HFY, come see the Blade of Kethanar. I have only read about it in historical archives. The weapon in question was impressive, a curved blade nearly 2 meters long, forged from condensed neutron matter. It had been wielded by the legendary warrior Kethanar during the Unification Wars, capable of cutting through starship hulls. The delegation gathered around it, voices rising in admiration. HFY moved to join them, but paused when she noticed Aladdin had finally entered the armory. He walked slowly along the displays, stopping occasionally to examine a weapon more closely. Remarkable craftsmanship, the Throlian was saying. Such a blade requires 3 generations to forge properly. The technique has been lost for centuries. On Volthera Prime, a insectoid Voltheran added, clicking its mandibles. We consider possession of such a weapon to be the highest honor. Wars have been fought for lesser blades. HFY watched as Aladdin stopped before the Blade of Kethanar. He stood there for a long moment, his head tilted slightly, studying the legendary weapon. Then, barely audible, she heard him whisper something. Those are kitchen knives on my planet. The words were so soft, she thought she had misheard. But the translator implant didn't mishear. It processed and delivered the translation with perfect clarity. The armory went silent. Every being turned to look at the human. The Throlian's tentacles went rigid. The Voltheran's antennae flattened against its carapace. A Drellian diplomat's facial sacs inflated with what could only be outrage. Excuse me. The Drellian hissed. Did you just call the Blade of Kethanar a kitchen implement? Aladdin looked up, seemingly surprised that anyone had heard him. I apologize. That was rude of me. He smiled apologetically, but something in his eyes remained distant, calculating. Explain yourself, human, the Throlian demanded, its voice losing all traces of earlier enthusiasm. HFY stepped forward, her diplomatic instincts screaming warnings. Perhaps we should continue the tour. No, Aladdin said gently, holding up a hand. I should explain. I meant no disrespect to Kethanar or the craftsmanship. He gestured at the blade. This is a beautiful weapon. The balance, the edge geometry, the metallurgical exceptional by any standard. But, the Voltheran prompted, its mandibles clicking rapidly. But on Earth we have knives of similar size and design in most kitchens. We use them to prepare food. My grandmother had one she used for cutting melons. He paused, his eyes moving across the assembled weapons. That spear over there, we call those boar spears. Hunters use them for sport. Those axes, we used those to cut firewood. That morning star, medieval farmers modified agricultural tools into those. Silence in the armory had become oppressive. Impossible, the Drellian whispered. These are weapons of war. They require years of training to wield effectively. They have ended lives, toppled governments, shaped the destinies of entire species. Yes, Aladdin agreed quietly. I'm sure they have. We have weapons like that too. He turned to face the delegation fully. But these particular designs, we moved past them. A long time ago. HFY felt something cold settle in her chest. Moved past them, she echoed. What do you mean? Aladdin looked at her, and for the first time since she had met him, his friendly mask slipped entirely. What lay beneath wasn't hostile, it was far worse. It was patient, ancient, the look of a species that had climbed a very long, very bloody ladder. I mean that these weapons, all of them, represent close combat, face-to-face, where you can see your opponent, maybe even speak to them before you kill them. He walked slowly through the armory, his footsteps echoing in the silence. Humanity spent thousands of years perfecting these swords, spears, axes, maces. We got very, very good at killing each other up close. He stopped before a display of ornate dueling pistols. Then we invented gunpowder. Suddenly you could kill someone from across a battlefield. Then we made better guns. Rifles that could drop a target from a kilometer away. Then artillery that could level cities from beyond the horizon. The Throlian's tentacles had begun to tremble. Surely then we invented aircraft, Aladdin continued, his voice remaining soft, conversational. Bombers that could obliterate entire regions while the pilots ate breakfast at 10,000 meters. Then missiles that could cross continents. Then nuclear weapons that could end millions of lives in an instant. He turned back to the delegation. And we used all of them, on each other. For thousands of years, Island Y found her voice, though it came out weaker than she intended. Why are you telling us this? Aladdin's expression softened slightly. Because you need to understand what you've invited into the council. You've shown me your greatest weapons, the pinnacle of your military achievement, expecting me to be impressed. He looked around the armory one last time, and I am impressed by the artistry, the history, the honor these weapons represent. He walked toward the exit, pausing at the threshold. But you've also shown me that the galaxy is still fighting wars the way my species did 3,000 years ago, and I needed you to understand that when the Council voted to fast-track humanity's membership, when you decided to welcome us into the galactic community, he looked back, his eyes meeting Island-Y's. You weren't extending a hand to a primitive species that needed guidance. You were offering a truce to something that had already won a war you didn't know you were in. The human left the armory. The delegation stood in shocked silence for a long moment. Finally, the Voltharan spoke, its voice barely a whisper. What have we done? Island Y couldn't answer. She was too busy running calculations in her head, remembering every friendly smile Aladdin had given her, every measured word, every careful gesture. Humanity had seemed so agreeable, so eager to join the galactic community. She finally understood why. They hadn't been asking permission. They had been showing mercy.